Hi, I'm Christie Blatchford. I'm the courts columnist with the National Post, and this is my bull terrier, Obi, who insists on being on camera every time I am. I come to you today not speaking about a court case in particular, but rather with a very bad case of what I think is revisionist history and apologia disease. Sort of inspired, I suppose, by the recent decision of Victoria, the city of Victoria in British Columbia, to remove a statue of Sir John II McDonald, the first Canadian Prime Minister, and considered the architect of two things, both the architect of Confederation, and thus really a founder of this country, and also the architect of the residential school system, which, as we know, did so much damage to Indigenous people. Anyway, the statue was dragged away on Saturday, on the weekend, and on Sunday, the plaque which replaced the statue was defaced. The plaque reads in part that Johnny MacDonald was, quote, a leader of violence against Indigenous peoples, which is probably true, but it's as simplistic and disingenuous a description of the man, I think, as arguably a statue in his honor could be said to be. You know, other places have removed statues of MacDonald and other figures, other Confederation-era figures. And I understand the rationale. The rationale is that these weren't just great Canadians. They were great Canadians with, you know, a history of racism and a history of, other bad character traits. And all of that is true, of course. You know, none of us is one thing to the exclusion of any other. We are all complicated. We are all flawed. We all have bad sides. And it was done, you know, as though being a flawed human being was unusual and shameful, and you should have to hide away the statue. And I think it's silly, and I think at least, maybe other Canadians too, are kind of wearying of this modern tendency to rewrite history by attempting to either get rid of embarrassing historical figures or not putting them in sufficient context, that we need to have, you know, we need to hide their statues or rename the buildings. Enough already. You know, Canadian prime ministers, going back, I think, as far as Brian Mulroney, have been issuing a steady stream of formal apologies to various groups who were wronged in this country. And there's no question, all of the groups, or just about all of them, I think, were arguably or inarguably wronged. But at some point, you have to own your history. You own your history by admitting that, for instance, Johnny MacDonald was a man of his day. Other historical figures are equally flawed, and replacing a statue with a plaque, which is as one-dimensional, you know, a leader who perpetrated violence against Indigenous people. Yeah, he was that, but he was all the other things too. He was a builder. He was a visionary. He was a dreamer. He was a heavy drinker, apparently. He did this. He did that. Women found him charming. How is this a surprise to anybody? We can know our history better, certainly, in this country, and we should. But, you know, the statue glorified MacDonald the builder. The plaque denigrates MacDonald the racist. How is this progress? How is this doing anything but giving people like me, fatigue with seeing our leaders apologize for everything that happened in the past? We are all creatures of the moment. And Johnny MacDonald was no different.